Tim, thanks so much for sharing your perspective, and just to echo a lot of the sentiments. And we've got a great system in place. Obviously, change is needed and innovation, and we're seeing a lot of that here. We've got tech companies, we've got record keepers, asset managers, and a lot of those tech companies, what I would consider to be non-traditional companies, kind of jumping in to kind of help build a better system and be additive. I guess similar to what your takeaway from what Jamie and Ed were saying was also the willingness to work together. We've got to work together as an industry. So you talked about the cybersecurity panel, board, people collaborating, but the only way we're going to be successful as a organization, as an industry, as a nation in terms of retirement preparedness is to work together. Not one organization doesn't just have the monopoly on what's best in terms of retirement. And then that's coupled with industry working together with public policymakers, so regulators and legislators, to come up with ideas. And I think we're seeing that. We just talked to John Scott at the state level. We had the president articulate the MyRA, but we've also got all these states kind of popping up with different ideas and concepts. And so I guess it's heartening to see that kind of coalition kind of building and people coming together.
Absolutely. We absolutely have to come together as an industry. I think you heard it yesterday with one of the panelists from the congressional panel that Chris Gaston put together. Talk about the fact that the industry was coming onto Capitol Hill, but didn't come with a unified voice. And so legislators were scrambling around trying to figure out which way was up when they were listening to the industry. And that is a perfect example of that lack of unity. And I think one of the things that we as an industry need to do, and I was thankful that Ed really put that challenge out there to come together and create really what it's that we're for, to then be able to articulate what we are for as an industry. I think the real benefits of that are that we can share common research that emphasizes the points that we are trying to make with the policymakers on Capitol Hill, and that will resonate. Rather than getting piecemeal from all of the members, we can unify that voice and be that unifying element for the industry.
Yeah, I think it'll help reinvigorate, and hopefully, to the point earlier, it's about really elevating this issue in the national conversation, right? I mean, we just had 2 decades worth of conversations around healthcare, kind of coalescing into the Affordable Care Act, so we've kind of got that. Now, whether you can agree or disagree on whether that was the right approach, but it was an approach. And so maybe we can now shift the conversation a little bit towards retirement. And I've covered this on the show and other episodes, but also in our Cammack retirement briefs. And is it time for a national conversation about retirement policy? I think we're starting that. The president's had some conversations in the Rose Garden about that, or speeches. We've got the new DOL fiduciary rules, but in reality, we need to have a broader conversation about people taking money, putting it aside for the future so that they can be independent and free in their retirement years. And I think that's what it's all about.
I absolutely agree. And one of the things that you mentioned is your discussion with the Pew Charitable Trust and the work that John Scott is doing. My membership is wholeheartedly in support of anything that expands coverage of retirement plans to all Americans. I mean, that is motherhood and apple pie to my members. But at the same time, to your point, without having a unified voice that's out there supporting that and coming out with tangible ideas of our own, it leaves a void in the discussion, and the states have started to fill that void. The problem with the states filling the void is that they start to create 50 state solutions. Mm-hmm. And that undermines ERISA. And we developed ERISA over 4 decades ago in order to have a uniform standard. And that's worked very, very well. But if we now start to create a plan for Illinois that's different than the plan for Indiana, or Delaware has one that's different from Maryland, and now employers who may happen to be have a national focus have to worry about, do I have an employee who lives in one state, works in another state, one state has a plan, one state doesn't have a plan, and the complications of that just start to kind of bring the system down versus supporting it.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot more to talk about, a lot of conversation, and I'm hoping that we can continue to have a dialogue in the coming months and years about what's happening in retirement. So Tim Rouse, Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Jeff, thank you.